대통령으로서의 직책을 성실히 수행할 것을 국민 앞에 엄숙히 선서합니다.
Could you please give us a self-introduction with your native language?
I write for The Guardian in the UK, Al Jazeera, Nikkei Asia, or The New York Times. Hi, my name is Rafael Rashid, and I'm a freelance journalist based in Seoul, South Korea.
Me llamo Rui Valdés y soy el corresponsal en Corea del Sur de la agencia EFE.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Célio Fioretti, je suis correspondant en Corée du Sud pour les radios publiques françaises et le journal La Croix.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут Дементова Мария, я работаю в Республике Корея корреспондентом. 이 국가는 취재하기 재미있는 국가입니다. 왜냐면 항상 무슨 이슈가 있어요. 재미있는 이슈가. 국내 정치라든가 그런 거는 심심하지 않습니다.
South Korea, a country now in the grip of...
It's a new day here in Seoul.
South Korea, overnight, the country's former president...
South Korean president.
Yeah, I think Korea is a very dynamic country. Things seem to be changing every single day, and every day when I wake up, there's always something new happening, something fresh. Whether it's positive or negative, there's always something different happening every single day, and the pace of life is quite relentless, it's quite non-stop. For me personally, I think Korea's quite a good match for my personality, and of course, I quite like Korean food, so that also helps.
To declare martial law. He said it was necessary to protect...
Less than 2 weeks after he was appointed to the country's...
In terms of Korean politics, it's extremely divided, it's extremely polarized in this country. It's either black or white. You're either with us or against us. You're either on the left or either on the right. But also, I think one thing that I do, I guess, admire in Korea when it comes to politics is that people are not afraid to voice their opinions, whether it's online, on TV, or in the streets. For example, during the martial law crisis, we saw people going out to the streets to protest and voice their anger and frustration at the situation within a matter of minutes. And I think it shows how passionate Koreans are about holding people accountable for their actions and taking matters into their own hands into the streets.
네, 저는 선거 때부터 쭉 현장에서 취재를 해왔기 때문에 이재명 대통령이 이겼을 때 사람들의 마음과 그 모든 것을 직접 경험했거든요. 그래서 굉장히 큰 기대감이 있었던 것 같습니다, 사람들에게.
You can really see at the time the country was really divided, and I was expecting to see what his capacity to really bring back the country together after such an intense crisis, a political crisis. So I had a high expectation. Also, knowing that he has a vast majority in the National Assembly, I was also curious to see how he could use that to enforce his ideas, his project for Korea, and that's what we have seen for the last year.
A dramatic day of developments in South Korea, a country now in the grip of a major political crisis. Martial law and military rule declared by President Yoon earlier in the day.
계엄령 사태 이후로 이렇게 흔들리고 너무 불안감 속에 있는 사회를 잘 보살펴주고 이 상황을 정상화시킬 수 있는지 그런 거에 대한 우려감이 많았거든요, 주변에. 하지만 계속 시간이 갈수록 사람들의 마음이 많이 달라졌습니다. 주변 제가 알고 있는 지인들과 기자들 중에 있는 전문가들까지 일을 되게 잘하는데요, 이 정부가 약간 이런 반응이었어요. 제가 생각했던 것과 되게 너무 잘하고 있습니다. 약간 그런 반응이어서 왜냐하면 지금 재작년과 비교할 수 없을 만큼 한국의 이미지가 좀 괜찮아졌다고 저는 느낍니다. 일단 지도자가 잘하고 소통을 잘하고 잘 나가야 나라 이미지가 이렇게 올라가는데 또 거기에다가 실질적인 성과도 있지 않습니까? 뭐 경제 발전이라든가 아니면 뭐 기술. 다른 나라와 기술 분야에 있어서 뭐 딜, 뭐 어떤 협력 그런 성과가 많았기 때문에 당연히 이제 뭐 개혁형 국가 그런 게 아니라 그런 단어가 이미 안 나와요. 안 나온 지 오래됐어요, 솔직히. 언론에서 본 지.
I would say that in terms of stability, they succeeded. The international eye of Korea very fast change after martial law to now. I don't see much concern about the democratic health or the institutional health in South Korea. That's not the discussion right now in the media. So I would say that's the biggest achievement that I can think of in the first year. It's quite fast. And then when these things happen, I think APEC helped a lot to shape that back, and people say, okay, well, Korea is back on track.
I think South Korea signaled to the international community that South Korea is back in business, and has been very quick to restore the damage that was caused due to the previous president and previous administration. I think at lightning speed has been able to do this, meeting with world leaders at different summits, both here in Korea and around the world, and going to Southeast Asia, which is of course an extremely important for South Korea. I think the president has made it clear that Korea's back, not just as a trading partner, not just as an economic power, but resilient democracy.
So I would say what was the most striking policy so far in the past year. To me, the first is the labor policy through the yellow envelope bill that was touched on really at the beginning of the term of the president. He's on that, through that, he's really sincere and sticking with his past, his history. He didn't forget where he come from as a labor lawyer. Also, during his term as a mayor of Seongnam, he really pushed for labor policies and more like fair society, more equal relation between employers and employees. Korea has still some issues, including deaths at work, for example, among the OECD countries. It's not ranking quite well. So it was quite interesting to see his push for labor policies.
사람 목숨을 지키는 특공대다 이렇게 생각하고 정말로 철저하게 단속해야 됩니다. 이번에 이거 해가 상당 기간 지나도 산재가 안 줄어들면 진짜 직을 거십시오.
그렇게 하겠습니다.
If I could, or the ones that come to my mind right now, I wouldn't know the policies related to Kospi and to motivate people to move their investments. Well, the regionalization, I mean, that has been a little bit more controversial, like the putting more focus on government investment and infrastructure in provinces instead of focusing everything in Seoul. That was, let's call it an interesting policy too, like if it's gonna work.
저는 그 외교 안보 분야와 또 경제 분야와 그리고 개인적으로는 언론과 소통이라고 생각합니다. 왜냐하면 새로운 정부가 들어서고 제가 또 대통령실로 이렇게 출입 기자로 들어간 이후로 이전 정부와 차이를 심하게 느낄 수 있었습니다.
So he's opened up many of the kind of government agencies to the cameras, to live streaming every cabinet meeting. And even President Ijeong himself is very busy communicating, whether it's on TV, through cabinet meetings, through social media, on platforms like X. Sometimes I've subscribed to his posts, and sometimes I get these posts at like 10 p.m., midnight, 1 in the morning, 6 in the morning, and I have to evaluate, is this news or not? What do I do with this information? But definitely he's positioned himself as a person who I think wants to talk to the people and say that, well, yes, I'm president, but I'm also a person just like anyone else. I think we've had around 4 or 5 press conferences with the president. It shouldn't be abnormal, but it does feel a bit weird that suddenly the government is so open. So I think that was surprising in a positive way.
당연히 언론은 나라에게 필요한 존재입니다. 왜냐하면 국민들에도 이렇게 사실을 알리고 그리고 외부적으로 알리는 것을 여기서 역할하는 것은 외신밖에 없고요. 외신들과 소통이 활발해졌다는 것은 한국이 이제 약간 잘하고 있을 거라는, 그리고 잘하고 있다는 거에 대한 자신이 있어 보였습니다. 언론을 이렇게 멀리하고 뭔가를 숨기고 그런 게 아니라 우리는 내신과 같이 외신도 부르고 똑같이 보여주고 똑같이 증명하면 된다. 왜냐하면 우리가 잘하고 있기 때문에. 약간 그런 건 좀 있는 것 같아요. 약간 자신감, 자부심 그런 거는 느꼈어요. 대통령실에서는.
Main parties move on and become something that all of the people.
During press conferences with President Lee, he makes it clear that he doesn't want to be seen as godlike figure, but wants to be together with everyone else. He sits just 1 meter or 1.5 meters away from journalists. He's not on a podium. His press conferences can be a little bit long. Sometimes he's talking for 3 hours, but it goes to show that he wants to talk to us. He wants to be open and accessible and answer different questions. Even during press conferences, his team implemented a kind of lottery system. So they pick the journalist's name out of a box at random, and it gives an opportunity for small media who might not usually have a chance to ask questions.
I would put it in a personal level. Yeah. It was special. The president did a press conference with all the invited all the international media, and I got to ask him a question. And I think the question made quite a lot of noise, and still it's been talked about.
Republic of Korea, 이재명. 스페인어권의 기회를 드리겠습니다.
Agencia EFE Valdez Ruitón 기자입니다.
I think President Ijeong, shortly before that conference, he published in his X account, an article where a soldier was talking about these operations during the Yoon Suk-yeol administration, where they were sending drones to North Korea. Then North Korea also denounced these drones. They showed pictures. They even brought the case to the UN. And so that day of the press conference, that topic was very fresh.
My question is, would your administration consider issuing a state-level apology to Pyongyang for these actions as a way to help to reduce tensions? Thank you very much.
It was not only that I get the chance to do it, but I felt it was an important opportunity to ask him about the topic, and his answer was actually pretty interesting. At the moment, we didn't know the position of the government regarding that issue at that point that clearly, and everything was very fresh. I think it was a funny moment because his answer, I think I put him a little bit on the spot.
어떻게 제 마음속을 들여다보고 그런 질문을 하신지 모르겠어요. 저는 사과해야 되지 않을까 생각을 하면서도 차마 말을 못 하고 있습니다.
his reaction was actually quite funny. I think the whole room was he made everybody laugh.
I would say pragmatic is the word, and transparent. I can feel maybe a sense of sincerity. He really tries to talk openly. Maybe sometimes he can be divisive, maybe sometimes a bit controversial, but he says the thing as he thinks they are. This transparency, this pragmatism, trying to be honest with the people that elected him, also people that were not voting for him. He's trying to reach out to everyone. I think that's quite innovative in current politics.
대통령께서 피스메이커를 하시면 저는 페이스메이커로 열심히 지원하겠습니다.
So if you become the peacemaker, then I will assist you by being a pacemaker.
That's good. We can do big progress, I think.
I would say the big change and the most striking one is really how the current administration is trying to balance with foreign powers in the region and also its long-lasting ally, the US. Alliances have been shifting, the whole world tension, the world seems to be shifting really fast, and Korea is trying to balance everything.
At first, I was a little bit skeptical because what does pragmatic diplomacy mean? Trying to be friends with all your neighbors and partners and having this kind of balancing act. Is it possible? But I think he surprised a lot of people being able to talk to China, Japan, the USA, all at the same time. And I think he's shown, at least in the past year, that this wasn't just a word, but he actually really did mean it. And I think we're seeing those results through the strong diplomatic relationships with different countries. I mean, just for example, when he met President Lula from Brazil, he shared a video on social media, an AI-generated video of him and Lula as child laborers, I think embracing, and then he said something like, you know, we are brothers, and I thought that was very emotional.
요즘 또 언급 안 할 수 있는 것은 견제가 아니겠습니까? 코스피를 다들 보셨고요. 네, 주변에 이제 주식을 안 하는 사람이 없는 것 같습니다.
국장 탈출은 지능순이라고. 이걸 빨리 이제 국장 복귀는 지능순이라는 말이 생겨날 수 있도록.
저는 솔직히 좀 놀랐어요. 코스피가 6천을 넘어간다? 저는 그걸 안 믿었어요. 개인적으로. 이거 어렵지 않을까? 지금 안 그래도 상황이 어려운데 어떻게 그거 올라가요? 했는데 갑자기 올라가더라고요. 그리고 그 다음에 6,500. 그 6,500 뒤로 우리가 6,500 기사를 썼는데 그 다음에 7,000으로 넘어갔고요. 그거는 약간 계속 올라갈수록 이제는 놀랍지도 않습니다. 아이 계속 가겠죠? 이거예요. 약간 이제 9,000도 가자.
Just as I arrived to the interview, I was reading that the results on the first trimester of this year were outstanding compared to, I think, all economies. If I'm not mistaken, all economies in Asia. So it's the country that performed better in the first 3 years of this year.
I think one of the most notable maybe achievements has been restoring predictability after seeing so much instability and letting investors and kind of partners and other countries know that Korea is a safe place, a stable place to be able to do business in. I think it's less about the number of points and more about market structural reform, and I think it gives confidence, of course, sends a strong signal of confidence to different stakeholders, and I think this can help in the long run to resolve South Korea's undervaluation problem.
I would say it's hard to know what is the most disappointed one. It's still early in the term. Maybe the effect will come later. But I would say still the country appeared to be still divided. I think the task is not finished on how to bring back the country together. Both parties are really, it can be a sort of a campism that's known for Korea. It's everywhere in the world, but even more stronger, I would say, in Korea. Both sides of the assembly are defending their position, and sometimes it feels difficult to find a compromise between the two. I would say the country is still deeply polarized. There's also this regional aspect of it between what we call now the East and West Korea since the last election. So I would say that's the big issue, and I think the government is trying to resolve that, but it's going to take a lot of time. It's a deep issue, complex issue, but it's shifting, I would say.
I think they have done what they can, but the effects on, let's say, tariffs or other deals and US pressure in terms of security or their military here is still not solved.
And South Korea's average tariff is 4 times higher. Think of that, 4 times higher. And we give so much help militarily and in so many other ways to South Korea, but that's what happens.
한미 정상회담에서 양국이 합의한 내용이 담긴 공동 설명.
Let's put it that way. So the relationship with US has been managed more or less well considering the circumstances, but the main issues still have not been solved. Probably only the trade part with the trade deal they signed, but in terms of security, it remains to be seen.
아마 놀라시겠지만 요즘 제일 잘 나가는 뉴스들이 뭐냐면 러시아인들이 최근에 카카오톡을 많이 사용하기 시작했던 그 뉴스가 제일 나갔습니다. 왜냐면 카카오톡 그 외국에 있는 유저들 중에 러시아인의 수가 갑자기 82% 늘어났거든요. 그래서 러시아인들도 그걸 엄청 많이 읽었고요. 그리고 요즘 그 K-푸드나 K-컬처 같은 게 러시아인들에게 인기가 많습니다. K-푸드에 대한 뉴스들이 최고로 잘 나가고요.
The most read articles, I would say, is everything related to Hallyu, to South Korean wave. Even though we publish all kinds of topics, you see a lot of interest with it. If we're talking about this year, the comeback of BTS was a huge story for us. As you may know, we are a Spanish language news agency, so our clients, even though we're from Spain, our clients are also in Latin America. So in Latin America, also Spain, there's many followers on K-pop, BTS, and those things.
Oh, Scott, here come the roses!
This is a hot spot. 숨쉬듯 찾는 이 밥상. 등거리
The Mexican president and President Ije명, they exchanged letters because the Mexican president was asking him for support to open more dates of concerts of BTS because there's just such a huge demand in the country. That thing might not sound, let's say, for the more serious readers, but might not sound that interesting, but I would tell them, think again. We're seeing also a new era where South Korea is using cultural diplomacy with a strength that has no precedent, in the sense that we cannot know the details of what happened between those letters, who says what exactly, but at least we can see the result. There's a president with an initiative in the other side of the world asking for support to this president to make more concerts of a group that belongs to a private company.
People looking to Korea as an example of a model democracy that has been able to overcome this kind of authoritarianist trend and completely remove it, weed it out, and move on. I think, especially after the martial law, many people and many comments online were wondering after the impeachment why they were not able to do the same thing in their own country. And I think many people around the world took inspiration from South Korea. The people were able to overcome authoritarianism without shedding any blood, and were able to do it simply by collectively coming together. And I think that has been a really, really powerful message over the past year and a half.
한국 정부가 지금 추진하고 있는 게 기술 분야가 아니겠습니까? 또 AI랑 뭐 로보틱스라든가 자동차 그런 뭐 조선업 그런 기술들이 한국의 미래를 조성하지 않을까라고 생각합니다. 그런 과정에서 당연히 어려운 과제들도 많이 남겠죠. 왜냐하면 또 고령화 사회 아니면 아직도 남아있는 그 저출생 문제랑 그런 과제들을 잘 풀어나가야 될 것 같습니다.
I would say the big issue is try to hold in the distance. It's like a marathon. A presidential term is a marathon. So you can start really fast, and I think Ijeong started really fast, really bold with a lot of reforms. But now it's about how you can keep the pace, how you can keep running as fast as you do without getting too tired, without breaking your ankles. And that means maybe not distancing yourself too much from what the public expects, what the current people expect, delivering on your promises, and navigating through those crises that are structural in Korea, as we mentioned. There's the housing market, there's the political landscape that is deeply structural, and how to navigate through that to keep your marathon going without getting too tired yourself.
Now South Korea has become a globally recognized country, one of the top economies in the world, one of the top democracies in the world. And so now is not a time to follow, but also to lead. South Korea is very powerful, not just in terms of hard power, but also soft power. People are now looking to this country for guidance, for inspiration, for advice. And I think South Korea is now in a position of responsibility to lead conversations, whether it's in terms of human rights, labor rights, or conversations about the climate crisis. I think Korea now is in a position to be setting the standard and setting an example, because all eyes are on this country at the moment.
존경하는 대한민국의 주권자 국민 여러분, 우리 모두는 지금 거대한 변화의 소용돌이 속에 있습니다. 세계를 선도하는 대한민국, 평화와 번영이 가득한 나라, 국민 주권의 빛이 꺼지지 않는 나라로 국민 여러분 함께 나아갑시다.